What happens when people stop listening to God, but keep calling themselves His people? Judges is one of the most unsettling books in the Bible. It is violent, chaotic, and deeply human. There are heroes, but none without flaws. There are victories, but no lasting peace. Judges shows what life looks like when faith becomes optional and truth becomes personal. In this video, we'll walk through Judges, a book that reveals the cost of forgetting God and the danger of living without moral direction. Overview. Judges is the 7th book of the Bible and follows the events after Joshua's death. Israel is now settled in the land, but without a central leader. God raises up judges, not as kings, but as temporary deliverers. These leaders arise during moments of crisis, rescue the people, and then fade into the background. The book follows a repeating pattern. Israel turns away from God. Oppression follows. The people cry out. God sends a deliverer. Peace comes. Then the cycle begins again. Judges does not show steady growth. It shows spiritual decline. Incomplete obedience and compromise, Judges 1-2. The book opens with a warning sign. Israel fails to fully remove the remaining nations from the land. Instead of obedience, they choose coexistence. Instead of devotion, they choose convenience. This compromise slowly reshapes their values. God's commands fade into the background. Judges introduces its central theme early: partial obedience leads to long-term consequences. The cycle of rebellion, Judges 3-5. The cycle begins with Othniel, followed by Ehud, a left-handed deliverer who assassinates an oppressive king. Then comes Deborah, a prophet and judge who leads Israel during a time of fear. Through her leadership, victory is achieved, and God's power is clearly displayed. These early stories show that God can still work through willing leaders. But the cracks are already forming. Each judge is slightly weaker than the last. Each victory brings shorter peace. Gideon, fear, power, and compromise, Judges 6-8. Gideon's story marks a turning point. God calls him while he hides in fear. God reduces Gideon's army so that victory will clearly belong to him. Gideon obeys and wins, but after success, something shifts. He creates an ephod that becomes an object of worship. What begins in faith ends in confusion. Judges warns that success can be as dangerous as failure when humility is lost. Jephthah and the cost of ignorance, Judges 10-12. Jephthah is chosen as a deliverer despite his troubled past. He leads Israel to victory, but makes a reckless vow that results in tragic consequences. This story reveals how far Israel has drifted from understanding God's character. When faith is shallow, even good intentions can cause harm. Samson, strength without self-control, Judges 13-16. Samson is the most famous judge, yet one of the most tragic. Gifted with incredible strength, he lacks discipline, wisdom, and restraint. Samson defeats enemies but cannot defeat himself. His downfall comes through repeated compromise and pride. In the end, Samson's final act brings victory, but at the cost of his life. Judges shows that strength without obedience leads to destruction. Moral collapse and chaos, Judges 17-21. The final chapters of Judges are disturbing. Idolatry spreads. Violence escalates. Civil war erupts among the tribes. The book ends with a haunting statement: in those days Israel had no king, everyone did what was right in their own eyes. This is not freedom. It is moral collapse. Judges closes without resolution, creating longing for righteous leadership. Key themes in Judges. The danger of moral relativism. Truth loses clarity when God is ignored. The cost of compromise. Small compromises lead to major consequences. God's mercy despite failure. God continues to rescue, even when people repeat mistakes. Flawed leaders and human weakness. God works through imperfect people, but flaws still matter. Cycles of sin and repentance. Unaddressed sin leads to repeated suffering. The need for righteous leadership. Judges points toward the need for a faithful king. Key verses in Judges. Judges 2 verse 16, the Lord raised up judges. God responds to cries for help. Judges 6 verse 14, go in the strength you have. God calls the weak. Judges 8 verse 27, all Israel prostituted themselves. The danger of misplaced worship. Judges 11 verses 30 to 31, Jephthah's vow. The cost of ignorance. Judges 16 verse 20, he did not know the Lord had left him. The tragedy of lost awareness. Judges 21 verse 25, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. The final warning. Relevance Today. Judges speaks powerfully to modern society. It shows what happens when truth becomes subjective and faith becomes optional. When people follow feelings instead of principles, chaos follows. The book challenges shallow spirituality. It warns that knowing about God is not the same as obeying Him. Judges also offers hope. Even in repeated failure, God responds to sincere cries for help. Closing thought. Judges leaves us unsettled, and that is intentional. It forces us to ask hard questions about leadership, obedience, and truth. When everyone decides truth for themselves, society fractures. Judges reminds us that without God's guidance, freedom quickly becomes disorder. And it quietly points forward, longing for a leader who will bring lasting peace.